Live on both.
Thanks, Jacob. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending this special council briefing. It's Monday, September 14th at 6:30. And I'm going to turn over the floor to Chris Ambrosio first for CMT brief, or at least contact brief for citizens, and then let you start to drive the agenda. So, Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. So following the Attorney General's recommendations, and after we've discussed with City Council, we're conducting a City Council and City Attorney briefing in which the public will not be participating by submitting comments, but they are provided the opportunity to view and listen. So their attendance is made available through CMT. And according to the governor's executive orders, we can allow this attendance via CMT. We've allowed or offered the opportunity to the public to attend via our normal Zoom platform that we offer, and our notice for this briefing provided that information. The public has also offered the opportunity to attend via phone, and we provided the information for that, as well as the opportunity to attend via the Jacksonville Beach YouTube channel, and that information was also provided. So again, following the Attorney General's recommendations, we're conducting this briefing between City Council and its City Attorney. And the topics of discussion are City Attorney annual review, summary report, financial cost savings comparisons, and a proposed amendment to City Attorney employment agreement. So Mayor, I provided Council with the City Attorney's 2019-2020 summary report, which was, of course, obviously not completely comprehensive of a full 12-month period, but it was approximately a 10 to 11-month period. So the first 10 to 11 months of my employment, but I needed to get that to Council so that we could have this briefing in order to meet what the Attorney General's recommendations were. So we're having the briefing now ahead of the October 21st, 2020 anniversary date of my first year of employment. So I provided the Council with the summary report. Our Director of Human Resources provided City Department directors and staff comments on the City Attorney's performance and their review. And I provided the current City Attorney employment agreement and proposed amendment. And then I can also, as we march along, I can provide you with some information with some financial savings and cost comparisons that I've found. So Mayor, I welcome any questions to start off with the summary report and the year in review, annual review of the City Attorney.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. Has everybody had an opportunity, hopefully, to look over the both the annual review and the summary report? Is there any comment that anybody would like to make? I don't see any hands yet, so I'm going to start. Well, Georgette popped up, but I'm going to go ahead and start anyway. You know, what a transition we made as a city, and what a great job you've done of leading us through that transition. I think Susan Erdely carried a very heavy load for herself and for the city and for the firm, her firm. To have a dedicated attorney is probably the wisest decision that we've made. I'm very grateful for all you've done. I was very encouraged to see such strong comments from department heads. And, it's certainly no surprise because you far exceeded my expectations. And I'm just very glad you're on the team. I'll go ahead and share the floor with Ms. Dumont.
Well, I guess I have nothing really to add to that other than ditto.
Okay. Thank you.
So loquacious this evening. Mr. Nichols.
I just want to pretty much say just about the same thing. I've heard nothing but outstanding stuff from staff, any of the community that's interacted with you. For me as well, you've far exceeded expectations, and I even had a high bar for you from starting off. And I mean, I just really appreciate all the extra effort and everything you put in. I know it's been an amazingly challenging year, and I know that you've really saved the city a lot of money and attorney's fees, and just it's been a privilege to work with you, and I just appreciate everything that you've done for the city, and just look forward to working with you for a long time to come.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hoffman.
Thank you, and ditto to a lot of what has already been said. I was one of the skeptics. I thought we should still consider hiring a firm, and I am very glad that I was swayed and proven wrong on that almost immediately. And you show that the resources I was hoping we would gain by enlisting a firm, that you have access to, connections, you know where to go to find answers, and you're providing us answers, I mean, almost real time, when we sit in meetings and have questions about things, which is night and day from where we were before. So I can only imagine that the city manager and the department heads are able to do their work more quickly and expeditiously, because you're able to provide that expertise so readily. And in the summary of the work that you've done so far, I mean, you've been in every department, you've touched almost every major issue. And I just reading all of that, I mean, I know how much you did because we saw most of what you did, but to see that all in one place was just really, really impressive, especially for the fact that for the past 6 months, you've had to become an executive order COVID expert. So I'm really glad that we had you for that. And especially for the accessibility that you've had with not only council and department heads, but also businesses in our community and residents who have questions about how to proceed within those executive orders. So I know that that's been really valuable to a lot of people in our community. So thank you. And it's just, I just can't imagine where we would be had we not gone this route and hired you in particular.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Golding.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said, but I absolutely agree with what everybody else has said. I would add that I've been very grateful for your availability, because I have contacted you a lot and asked you a lot of questions. And you've been amazing as far as being so accessible. And I think the list that you sent us in the summary report is indicative of how important it is that we have somebody in-house, because you obviously are showing that there are a lot of things that needed to be done. And so I too am very grateful that we have an in-house city attorney now. I think it's a great decision, and very glad to have you on the team. So thank you very much for everything, Chris. I know you've worked very hard, and we're very grateful for that. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Golding. Mr. Doherty.
I'll try and keep this short because as people know, I like to talk, but really everything that's been said beforehand, Chris, I agree with. I appreciate the fact that you put the extra at work and effort in during these trying times. I hope in the future that this is I hope that COVID's done and that your next year in employment is not as stressful and as taxing. But you've done a fantastic job, and I agree with what my colleague said as far as having an in-house attorney is not only cost effective for our citizens, but it's also a very efficient resource to have you on the team. And I appreciate it, and hopefully for many years to come, everybody else will appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's got everybody. Ms. Golding, your hand's still up. Did you have something else? Nope. Mr. Doherty, you're done. Good. Okay. Chris, the financial cost savings and comparisons, did you want to walk through that?
Sure. Do you want me to make any comments on the report at all? No one had any questions? It's fine. If not, it's fine. Okay. So I've done a cost savings comparison for the city with respect to the advantages that the city gained by having an in-house city attorney. And the normal rates that the city was paying for outside attorney fees for the small portion of work that was actually worked on for the city, the rates generally range between $250 to $325 an hour. Generally, the 3 years prior to my appointment, the average annual fees for a limited portion of service. And let me just add first, by the way, that Susan and Denise in my transition were incredibly professional, unbelievably helpful. And Denise predominantly because that's who I was working with at the time in late October 2019. Denise May could not have assisted me more. Came to the office on multiple occasions. We had many, many phone conferences, and it was a very professional experience from one attorney to the other in the transition of the items that she was familiar with and working with, and she educated me as best as she possibly could. And whenever there's a transition of this magnitude, you would hope that the person, you know, that has the information would share in the way that she did, and she did, and it benefited the city. So I've always wanted to thank Denise publicly, and I have, and I just wanted to add that again because I can't possibly do a year in review without acknowledging her from the beginning. That was very helpful. However, the city was paying an average of $342,000 a year for part-time legal services. I conservatively estimate that as under those average rates and at that type of billing per annual for service on an annual basis, the city would have been paying approximately $750,000 to $1 million worth of attorney's fees based on the work production that I achieved for this first 10 to 11 months. And again, a lot of it has to do with COVID. You know, we weren't working 40-hour work weeks, and COVID has caused the office to essentially be two offices in one. And I pointed that out in the report in that, you know, we were doing the regular city attorney work that would have existed and developed without COVID. But with COVID, it literally became a second job. And that required a lot of work. And keeping in mind, I don't mean to represent that it's just me doing the work. I mean, department directors, staff, Mike and Karen, we were all in it together. So, I mean, of course, I'm just focused on what my role is in providing my summary to you. But COVID turned us upside down in every way. So everybody was working hard. So I just wanted to say that it was a team effort all the way. So I estimate that during this past year, you know, the billing could have been approximately $62,000 a month and somewhere between $750,000 to $1 million worth of legal services that we provided. The two quantifiable, and I was trying to locate the best examples of what type of project or work the city really benefited from that would be mostly of a quantifiable benchmark or a really good criteria-based example. And I thought of two examples that took an immense amount of time and a lot of work, and outside law firms would have charged an extremely high amount because of the amount of time that it took to do these projects. Two examples are the Lakeside Drive gate dispute and the Baptist Hospital off-premises emergency wayfinding sign matter. So taking those two items out of the list of the 30 pages of the summary report, those two projects took me approximately 100 hours of legal service time. That includes several conferences, meetings, extensive research, document preparation, document review, email correspondence, hearing meetings, several meetings in terms of council meetings and procedures like that the city council would require us to do to achieve a resolution to the matter and actually draft and pass a resolution, but also meetings with interested parties at that time. And of course, in-house meetings with management and other department heads and staff that were impacted. For example, Public Works, greatly impacted by a Lakeside Drive gate matter. And collectively, those two projects would have easily have been 100 hours of legal time. So if we had assigned that to a outside firm, they likely would have had one or two attorneys working on those projects. one doing drafting, research, writing, the other perhaps doing meetings and presentations. But those, I estimate at, if they were at 100 hours, just those two projects, then at the Marks Gray rate, the typical rate, those two projects would have been $25,000 of legal fees. That amounts to 16.6% of my salary. So two projects would have amounted to 16% of the salary for the in-house city attorney. That is the best representation that I can use to show project-specific savings and benefits that the city has received for two items that were outstanding and difficult, unresolved, long-standing, and needed sound decision and sound resolution to. And we achieved that. So those are two examples that I pulled out that I thought would be best examples. For financial savings comparisons, wanted to point out that many cities they average between 3 to 10 attorneys. And those would be associate attorneys that operate under the city attorney. So you'll see a city attorney and then 3 to 9 attorneys. For example, City of Gainesville has 9 attorneys. City of Key West has three assistant attorneys under the city attorney and then 2 staff assistants. And you'll see most city attorney offices have multiple staff, legal assistants, and paralegals. So for the city of Jacksonville Beach, thankfully, you have agreed to have a legal assistant, and that's Elise Broche. And I just need to commend Elise. She's an incredible assistant. She works great with Chris Wright in the manager's office. They work together every day, all day, to help the executive leadership and all of the administrative and management duties that we perform all day long. Could not be successfully done without Chris Wright and Elise. So the city of Jacksonville Beach has 1 attorney and 1 legal assistant. And at this time, I'd suggest that we can keep that. And hopefully with COVID dying down, going away, I'll be able to commit even more time to regular city business. So I wouldn't say that at this point we need an assistant attorney, although I've had several directors ask if that's coming. And I've told them there's no plan for it at this point. So the Florida League of Cities has reported a 2019 average in-house municipal attorney salary range of $166,000 to $252,000. And I wanted to point that out as being a range that we think is, there's 49 cities surveyed, and we think that is for city attorneys that are receiving the same in-house or same city benefits as any employee. The Florida League of Cities didn't think that, they assumed that it was that because they were asking for in-house municipal attorney salaries. Then Alachua County has a survey report from 3 years ago where the in-house county attorneys have an average salary range of $181,000 to $286,000. And those were 31 counties surveyed. So based on those surveys, the city also has maintained a good savings for itself with the in-house city attorney that it established last year. The city of Key West, I think I mentioned this already, but they have 3 assistant attorneys and 2 staff attorneys. Generally, the assistant attorney's salaries range between $65,000 and $152,000 for attorneys that have 4 to 7 years of experience. And that's typical. If I were to ask council for the approval to hire on an assistant attorney, I would want someone with 5 to 7 years as a minimum. I mean, it'd be great to have someone with 10 plus years, but typically it'd be difficult to find someone who's an assistant or an associate attorney who has 10 plus years, who is willing to transition from whatever their well-established position is in the local government that they work for as it is. I would want a city, county, local government board certified specialist as my associate. So they would be expecting to be paid on the high end of, those types of associate attorney salaries. But the city of Jacksonville Beach doesn't have that burden of having the extra staff, assistants, paralegals, or associate attorneys. So it's great that we have this functioning legal department with just the cost of a single attorney and a single legal assistant. Sometimes I call her Superwoman because I just can't believe what she's able to achieve. So those were just some items I wanted to point out with respect to some of the financial savings and cost comparisons that we see around the state. And I would suggest that the measure of a city attorney's office in the state of Florida is city attorney's offices that are equivalent to the work that we perform. There's a notion that you measure a city attorney's office by population. And I would suggest that doing that for city of Jacksonville Beach is misleading, because we're talking about a city that did not have an in-house city department, legal department. That's very different from a longstanding legal department that was in place and functional for decades with attorneys that were there and established in systems and operations and procedures that were well established. We haven't had that. We didn't have that. We had great outside attorneys, but we didn't have that. So the city of Jacksonville Beach is a legal department that's being created and also conducting city business at the same time. So it's a very different measure. This isn't a city attorney that's, I'm not a city attorney that stepped into an office where I already had 3 or 4 established associate attorneys that have been with the city for 5 to 10 years. And they have this long-standing working relationship with departments. That's critical, that does not exist, to keep that in your consideration of what your legal department is, because as department directors and staff work with me, everything's brand new. It is an unwrapping of a present every single meeting we have. There was no foundation. So for each department head and director, the encounter and the work is us creating essentially brand new systems and operations and processes, creating brand new documents, because a lot of the documents are very outdated. They weren't in the city's best interest. They were functional, but they were lacking modern day provisions and terms that we needed. So, the director heads their department directors are seeing that full overhauls are needed. And you've seen that in the work that we've been doing, that, we're doing complete overhauls of documents and our governing materials for each department. We're redrafting the chart or the code for each department. And that's part of what's going on here, that this hasn't been ongoing work. This is we've taken a mountain and we're making Mount Rushmore. So there was nothing developed beforehand. So, when we get into an employment agreement, I respect that it's typical to utilize population size, and you measure a city attorney. The population size for city of Jacksonville Beach does not work. It doesn't work at all. If you were to take the city of St. Augustine and just say that, the city attorney's office and the city of Jacksonville Beach's office are similar, so you should just, calculate the similar numbers. I would say that that's not a good measure. It's rare to have a city where that city did not have a existing in-house legal department. And I think the manager and council made the greatest decision for the city of Jacksonville Beach to have an in-house department. This was an excellent decision. And I'm thankful to be the appointed city attorney. It's a coveted role and a remarkable challenge. And to think that this happened under Mike's leadership and under this council just prior to the COVID pandemic, that we could have never anticipated. But to have an attorney in-house, thanks to you and Mike and Karen, it's hard to explain, and it's hard for us to know just how much you benefited the city in light of COVID-19. If you did not have an in-house city attorney on this particular point in the history of city of Jacksonville Beach, there could have been a lot of mistakes made, and a lot more of the burden falling on Mike's and Karen's shoulders and our department director's shoulders. I mean, to think of what they dealt with and encountered already, and imagine them not having a city attorney teammate with them every minute of every day as we were all going through this. It's just that the timing was meant to be. It was meant to be. It was great. So anyhow, the city attorney budget is excellent. AJ and Ashley and Mike and Karen have made everything necessary and possible for this department and office to succeed. They have provided incredible leadership, partnership, teamwork. There's been no impediment whatsoever for me to do everything possible that benefits the city as the in-house city attorney, for the departments, for the boards, for administration, and trying to assist each one of you individually when necessary, and of course, all of you collectively as the elected body. But I am so thankful for the opportunity. I look forward to moving forward with our leadership and management. And I would say that for the upcoming year, hopefully we get COVID behind us to the point where it's not a daily activity, but it still remains a daily activity and responsibility to handle COVID-related work. Every single day we still have that. So unfortunately, we're never sure where it comes from. It could be from the planning and development department. It could be from Steve or Gene Paul. I mean, we never know. And those great leaders, they never know what they're going to be confronted with on a day-to-day basis either. So hopefully next year, we'll see more hours of the attorney time spent more on city business that's not COVID related. And I know we all have our fingers crossed for that. So be glad to answer any questions at this point.
Actually, Jacob, can you set us up for Ann so she can participate?
Yeah, there she is.
Okay, sorry about that.
Hey, Ann. You with us?
Yes.
Okay, there you are. October 1 is the anniversary date. Is there anything basically pushing us to get something for an employment agreement amendment, specifically maybe a pay increase? Is there any time limitation on that?
No, there's no time limitation because we can, we can always
October
make it
21st. Sorry, Ann, it's October 21st.
Oh, not October 1st.
Yes, sir.
Right.
October 21st. Yeah.
Okay. So that makes me feel a little better then, because we've got council meetings on October 5th and 19th. And would it be appropriate? Did you get enough material from both Chris and feedback from council for an evaluation, or are we going to use that document that was put together as the primary evaluation? And
This is unlike the city manager evaluation in regards that the city attorney's presented you his report and he's making his recommendation and recommending the amendment to his contract. So this is your opportunity to make your evaluation. There's not a point rating evaluation system.
so we're doing that verbally. We're not going to be doing written.
That's correct. You're doing that verbally now.
Okay, so we've pretty much covered that, I think. So the question I have then is, do we want to, we can't vote on anything at this meeting because it's a briefing, not a council meeting.
Right.
But it seems to me that we'd want to put at least one council member in charge of negotiating any amendment to his employment agreement, i.e. pay increase. And then bring that recommendation from the negotiations to the council for a vote. Is that correct?
Yes, if there's consensus of the group that you do not want to accept what Chris is requesting, you can certainly appoint a council member to do the negotiations, and they can bring, working with Chris, the amended contract for approval to the city council.
Okay. I haven't seen the amended contract. Did that go out to everybody?
Chris, what are you requesting?
Yes, Mayor. I didn't put any dollar value in there, but I submitted a copy to council.
Sorry, but I gotta get some
Oh,
trash.
no problem.
Is it okay?
Yeah. Thank you. I submitted it on Friday, September 11th, and Ann submitted the the directors and staff's comments and reviews and assessments. So in the attachment on Friday at 1:08 p.m., I provided the proposed amendment, and I'd be glad to email that to everybody right now if that would help.
I'm probably the only one that still gets my emails forwarded from the city manager's office. So if you wouldn't mind sending it to me, I'd
I
appreciate
will
it.
send it right now to you all, and so in the PDF, you'd want to, Mayor and Council, you would pull up the PDF, and it shows you the employment agreement and then a proposed amendment. And I do not have a dollar value in there for the second year of the city attorney's employment. The employment agreement is for an indefinite term, but it seems that it was structured to be reviewed, and an annual review was to take place each year. So at the anniversary. So that's how I structured the amendment, for it to still remain in that format as a 1 year. So at the end of that PDF,
Do you have a request on what you think would be fair?
I do.
Do you feel comfortable sharing that with us?
Absolutely, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that a comfortable range based on the research I did, the high range of city attorneys' salaries, I don't think that the city of Jacksonville Beach would be interested in paying an attorney that in-house. But I think that a range of something that would look like an attorney who is a director attorney for a large city, because that would be equivalent to essentially to what I'm doing, and it would be less than some of the higher end of the salaries that city attorneys are paid. But I'm keeping in mind that the city is not paying for any other associate attorneys. They're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars by not using outside attorneys, and they only have one staff member. So in light of that and the amount of savings that are being saved by the city, I would say that a more accurate salary would be in the area of 175.
Okay. Mr. Nichols, did you have anything else?
I guess I wanted to ask Chris, because I know he's probably one of his harshest critics, and it's probably overly fair with this. So, we don't need to discuss that number right now. I was just interested in seeing what his proposal was, and just all the everything else with COVID and the stuff he saved. I mean, I think it's a good starting point.
I appreciate that, Mr. Nichols. I mean, I'm thinking collectively that what's a fair and reasonable compensation. I'm also thinking of the amount of hours and time that I've put in and that I will put in, because of course this is looking prospectively, so going forward. But I know what I'm going to do, and I know how many hours I'll be working. And I know, you know, the savings, again, based on your wise decisions to bring us an attorney in-house, the amounts of hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being saved by the city by having in-house attorney, by having one staff member, and by not having the added expense of any associate or assistant attorneys. I just think that that's a fair price at this point. And you'll see, you see in the proposed amendment that I have a couple of changes with respect to a benefit adjustment as well, and also with a work adjustment. And if you scroll down, I'd be glad to answer any questions on that PDF, or I can explain them to council now.
And I guess my other question is, COVID has been a really different issue to face the city. And it's really like you've been doing two separate jobs. You know, I don't know, Ann, if you can answer this question, but if we've ever, you know, worked out, you know, done kind of a bonus for the extra time and effort that he's put in and the extra savings he's made. And
Well, we're in uncharted waters
What's that?
because we've never had a city attorney before. They're unique in relationship. They're as a general employee of the city. They work directly for the city council. They are professional attorneys. So we don't have any basis to go by. So this is kind of a unique situation as regards to the city attorney. In terms of performance evaluations or the attorneys, as Chris has done in providing his annual report, generally they'll make an annual report and they'll make a request for compensation and benefits, which I think Chris has done. I'm not familiar with a bonus, but I have not done enough research to tell you whether that's something that's typical or not. But certainly what Chris has done through this process so far is fairly typical of the city attorney. So they're very unique. They're contractually report to the city council. So it's your contract with the city attorney.
thank you.
Yeah, they are very unique. There have been examples of salaries where, for example, some cities have given their city attorneys contracts of $280,000. There's reports of 286 for county attorneys, 251 for city attorneys. So the numbers are all over the place. City of Key West, $195,000. Daytona Beach had a contract for $229. Port St. Lucie had $200 for their city attorney, and 16 other employees in that department, 9 attorneys. So they were paying 10 attorneys for the city of Port St. Lucie. 10.
Okay, Chris,
We do
I've
it with
got, there's a few other councilmen that have questions, so let me move
Sure.
on. Ms. Demont.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple clarifying questions for people who are watching but have not read through all of the information. Your current salary is your base salary.
150,000.
So you're at 150, you're asking 175. This now might go to Ann. What is the differential between the benefits and extras that he's asking for now versus what he currently has? But just the aggregate would be fine.
I don't have that number for you at the moment. I can provide that to you.
Okay, that'd be great. I want to say that Chris has just done a wonderful job. Just across the board, he's really gone up to the bar, and not the bar. I'm sure you have at some point in time, but he's really met our bar and has done wonderful work for this city. What I would really like to do is to tease out the request for a higher salary or a higher compensation from COVID versus what we expect him to do on a regular basis. The COVID piece really should be more of a benefit piece, because that's not something that's going to be ongoing. If it goes into his base salary, that's something the city is going to be paying for as long as we have him as an employee. So if either Ann or Chris are able to tease out COVID stuff versus this is my job stuff, the job once COVID's done stuff, that would be very helpful for us to be able to determine what a salary increase going forward should be, in addition to a bonus for all of the COVID stuff that he has had to deal with for the last 6 months. And that's what I've got to say. That's my piece. So I agree that, yeah, he's earned his keep. And definitely I could see giving him more compensation, but I'd like to just tease that out from this we hope is a one-time situation of a pandemic.
Thank you, ma'am. I think what we're getting into here is, there are other things to consider, compensation for other senior leadership and, how that all pans into play. This is something I'm not comfortable discussing on a council briefing meeting. And one of the things that I would recommend we consider is having a member of the council be a negotiator for this process, to sit down and look at other areas that are being compensated, or other cities and whatnot that are being compensated, comparing the compensation potential to city manager and others. I think it's important that we also consider that, is it legal to give bonuses in the government? I've been told before that it wasn't legal. And
Mayor, that's a good question. There is state legislation regarding bonus structure within municipal and county governments. We'd have to take a look at it, because under certain conditions you can, but you have to meet certain conditions laid out in state law.
okay, so that goes back to the point then that it might be a good idea for us, rather than to, go through this as a drill tonight, maybe we ought to agree on having somebody from the council sit down with Ann and the city manager as needed, the city attorney, and look at some of this information and put together a proposal or a suggestion to bring back to the council. And then we can make whatever tweaks we want to at that point. I know that in the last meeting that we had, there was a recommendation that Mr. Vogelsang do that. Certainly he's a great guy to do that, but under the circumstances where he's about to term out, I think we might want to consider having somebody that's going to be in the seat in the council for the next couple of years at least, represent somebody. That's my suggestion anyway. Does anybody have an opinion?
I mean, I think that Phil negotiated the original one and did an outstanding job doing it. He is an attorney. He understands understands everything that has to go along with it. Did a tremendous amount of research the first time. I was fully satisfied with the agreement that he brought forward the first time. I think we should stick with him. I think it's a good, outgoing kind of thing for him to do. I know he would. I no doubt that he would want to do it as well. If he's not acceptable, I'm willing to do it as well. I mean, I've got a lot of employees, and I negotiate salaries and contracts on a regular basis.
I think let's listen to other opinions. Ms. Golding.
I had some questions that I wanted to ask. So can I go ahead and do that? Because one of the things I'd like to ask Chris, because I would just like for us as a council to have this information, to understand how much have we spent in the last year in legal fees, aside from, because I know that we have other attorneys that have been helping with other things that are going on. And so I think it would be good for us to understand, I mean, not because that's going to have any bearing on, how much money you deserve, but I just think that we as a council need to see how much we've been spending in legal fees for the past year.
That's why I asked AJ to be on, and AJ may be able to provide more information on that with respect to our outside counsel costs.
Yeah, hold on. Let me queue up that information here real quick.
Sure.
So you wanted to know what we've spent on outside counsel maybe within the last 2 or 3 years?
Or no, I was just asking in the last year, because in addition to what we have paid our in-house attorney and his assistant, I'd like to understand what the whole picture looks like in the expenses for legal.
So we've had a bit of an issue with our financial system today. It's been down since about 1 p.m. this afternoon, of course. However, I can't say the last time I looked, it was in excess of 100,000. But we budgeted 116,000 for this fiscal year, so it's been well within the budget.
Okay, so that's what's budgeted for the coming year. Okay, got it.
Yes, it's the same amount. We kept that budget flat going from 20 to 2021, you know, because it's really a guess. You never really know how much you're going to spend in a given year. And so.
Okay. And then I have another question for Anne. Can somebody explain why we wouldn't do a review like we did for the city manager for the city attorney as well, so that we can provide some feedback and, you know, that sort of thing like we did with the city manager?
That can certainly be done if the city council wants to pursue that. That's an option. Generally speaking, with the city attorney, because of the sensitivity and the nature of the areas that they cover, it's normally handled with the city attorney with communication with the city council, but you can certainly do a scoring system if that would provide some benefit.
I'm just asking because I guess I wasn't, I guess since he reports to the council, I kind of thought that, you know, we might go through the same process that we did for the city manager. And I didn't know if there was a specific reason why we wouldn't do that.
The only reason that that was not proposed, because looking at the way the evaluations have been performed with other city attorneys, this is generally the format that we see. You know, this is our first city attorney, but we certainly could go into a scoring system. There's nothing that prohibits us from doing that.
Okay, I'd be interested in hearing what my colleagues would think about that. And then also, Chris, could you please explain the stipend that you're requesting in the amendment?
Sure. And then I can answer a question about trying to flesh out COVID-19 work too. There's some important things to say about that. So the stipend that I suggest is a stipend for the city attorney to achieve and maintain his or her city, county, local government law board certification. And there are local jurisdictions that provide a stipend to the city attorney or the county attorney for having that designation as a board certified specialist. So the agreement allows for a city council to consider an amendment, a salary adjustment, and a benefit adjustment. And a benefit adjustment that I'm requesting from council in my employment agreement is one that wasn't placed there as an incentive in the employment agreement, but one that other jurisdictions allow. And my former jurisdiction employer did allow it. And so we have a stipend, a monthly stipend of $500 per month for achieving and maintaining the Florida Bar Board certification in city, county, and local government law. And so that's an extra stipend for achieving that level of expertise and competency. It's the highest level that an attorney can achieve. A very small percentage of Florida licensed attorneys have that. And in the local government and state government world, you want to be sure that you have that expertise and competency and that level. And you had that in your agreement, absolutely. And I know that council and probably, you know, Mike and Mr. Vogel saying they all recommended that, and that was great decision. But the benefit wasn't provided in the employment agreement, and I'm just requesting my council to provide that.
And so that goes to cover like training and things like that, or what exactly?
No, it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily go to that. It goes to essentially a benefit to the city attorney that has that license, that certification as the expert. And it is a benefit adjustment that I'm asking for as a board certified specialist. You know, I've proposed to add it to and under the benefit section of my employment agreement. There are attorneys that get those stipends from their jurisdictions, and I used to, and I'm asking for it in my amended agreement.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
There is one other section in there that we can talk about if you'd like, and that has to do with respect to the one change regarding work requirements. And the proposal, again, it's at the end of the PDF that I forwarded to you and sent you, which has my amendment. So the changes are, I'm asking for a benefit adjustment that we just discussed, change in the salary, which has been left blank. And then the third is a slight change in the work requirements as they are stated in the Exhibit A of work and services that the city attorney shall provide. And it says that the city attorney shall attend all planning commission and special magistrate meetings, and that the city attorney will attend board of adjustment meetings if after a review of the agenda, he determines that the scheduled matters require his appearance. And I shall attend all other meetings at the request of city council, city manager, or department head in order to provide legal advice and opinions relative to matters under consideration by the city council. I'm proposing and requesting to replace that with the city attorney shall attend planning commission, community redevelopment agency, board of adjustment meetings, and special magistrate hearings when after a judicious and complete review of the scheduled matters, I've determined that it's in the city's best interest that I prepare and I participate and I attend those meetings in the best interest of the city. And also that I shall attend those meetings upon the request of city council, the city manager, or any department director when necessary to provide legal service. So certainly if there's anything on a scheduled agenda item that causes Mike concern and he wants the city attorney there, I'm prepared, I'm there. Absolutely, if city council wants me to attend and handle anything. But otherwise, the practice that I think is more practical is for me to continue to review the agendas for those boards and to meet with the relevant staff and department directors. And for us to decide whether they need my legal representation there. Because the time requirements as it is, without having to, mandatory to attend particular meetings, the work and the hours are, quite frankly, very difficult. And I think that the wiser practice is for me to take each agenda and meet with the staff and directors, prepare for the particular cases or matters that they need a city attorney to work on. And that is put on the to-do list. And that's part of a new work item, and that attending that matter and then following through with that matter, because there's the backside of that work. That's all that the way that I've proposed it is that I will attend any and all of those after I've had a chance to review those and determine with, sensibility and best interest for the city to attend those and handle those, work with staff and directors. Otherwise, if the city manager or city council department director asks me to attend, I'll attend. That's the one work change. Otherwise, I don't want to change anything else. I'll do every other thing that's asked. It's okay.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Mr. Doherty?
Oh, thank you. I agree with what you're saying, Mayor Latham, about having one of the council discuss and broker this contract, because there's a lot to it. I would recommend that Phil does it, even though he's not here tonight. But it is time sensitive. He will complete the work by October 21st. His term's not over until November. I think he's qualified to do it. He did it expeditiously in the first go around, which is more, the initial contract was more in depth. Now we're really talking about like particulars. But just as a point of interest, I mean, I noted a few things down. With regards to COVID, Chris, just say you were working 60 hours a week. At your current rate, that's $48 an hour, which I know my attorney doesn't charge that. My attorney's on about $2.50 an hour. With the increase, even if he was to work just 40 hours a week, and from what I'm seeing and from what you're talking about, what you just mentioned about attending meetings, etc., just based on a 40-hour work week at 175,000, that's 84 an hour. So when we talk about being a competitive city and trying to have the best employees out there, and I think for an attorney to be way under $100 an hour is actually pretty good value. But like I say, that's just my opinion. I would like Phil, or if he doesn't want to do it, somebody else. I prefer somebody that has either a business or legal background to negotiate with Chris. But I definitely think that an increase is definitely on the cards. It has to be. Just I appreciate you not quitting this year with the extra COVID pressure. I mean, I felt like quitting a bunch of times. I'm sure you've noticed I wasn't around. But yeah, as to what Georgette said, it would be nice just to put a dollar value on that extra work also, because it is unique, and hopefully, it won't be another occurrence next year. But yeah, that's it. Really, I think we could discuss this all night, but I would like to see Mr. Vogelsang discuss directly with Chris, and if the city manager's involved as well, to get this thing done and completed by the 21st of October. Thank you.
Like Mike likes to say, nod of heads. Is everybody okay with Phil doing this again, or are you interested in having somebody to be on the council? So Phil again. A lot of heads. So I'll call Phil in the morning and see if it's something he's willing to do, and if not, I'll report back to the council.
Okay.
Ms. Dumont, ever revisit?
Yes, thank you. Just with the extra 500 a month for his ongoing, I'm going to guess, professional development and such, that would bring your salary up to 181, not including the extra time, just the work aspect that you'd like adjusted, saying that you have to go to all the board meetings and everything else. I am fine with the adjustment to attending all the board meetings, as long as there is a very robust training for board members in place. Otherwise, I'm far more comfortable with the lawyer being in the room saying, whoa, you guys really need to get back on track here. But really an ongoing robust. So it's not just when somebody gets on a board, it's quarterly throughout the year. People are retrained, refreshed as to what it is that they're voting on and the legal framework in which their votes have to take place. So I'm fine with that part.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I just had a quick question. Mr. Dumont, the number you stated, the 181, can you tell me how you got there? Because I see $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year plus the 150. I mean, I have 156. I'm not sure where the 181 is coming from. Am I missing something?
I think she's talking about with the new salary, 170, 175.
Oh,
I was working off of 175 with the 600.
I got you. Yep, I got you. Okay.
You're up next, Mr. Nichols. Did you have something else quickly?
Yeah, I did have one other question. So if we were using outside counsel at this time through this period with COVID, I would think that the city would be able to make a like PPP claim or something that the city would be reimbursed for that additional cost that the city incurred due to COVID. Is that true? And I mean, if we are going to try to compensate Chris for that, for some of his efforts through COVID, is the city going to be able to potentially regain that extra effort that was put in from the federal government?
Mr. Stefopoulos, do you have any input there?
I don't have an answer for that, Mayor. It's a good question. I don't know if other communities have submitted charges for that or if it's been deemed an eligible expense.
If we would have run up an extra $700,000 in attorney's fees during COVID, you would have been looking for a way to find that money somewhere else, right? You would have been asking, so.
Correct.
Okay.
I was asking the same question, Corey, when it came to the technology.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Did you have anything else? Thank you, sir. Ms. Golding, quick revisit.
Yeah, just a quick comment and follow up to what Ms. Dumont said. I would say that my biggest concern is with the Planning Commission and the support that they get from a legal standpoint because of the quasi judicial issues that come before them. And I know I think if I could feel comfortable with what you're proposing, Chris, but like Ms. Dumont, I'd like to know that there would be consistent training done with the planning commissioners, because at least my experience over the years has been that that's where we end up with the legal challenges is with the planning commission issues primarily. I know Board of Adjustment, we get those too. So, I mean, I'm not writing that off completely, but I think Planning Commission tends to be an area that that can generate legal costs for us. And so I would just want to make sure that you do whatever you can to train the Planning Commission on a regular basis so that,
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I met with Heather Ireland today to discuss more advanced training and progressing that board a little more.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know if anybody else has questions and hands up. With your concurrence of the council, I'll go ahead and with Mike, reach out to Phil tomorrow. Ask him to take a look at the current contract and the proposed contract and look at it from the outside perspective and take a look at some of these things that Chris has put together, the cost savings and comparisons and the summary and annual review, and then come to us with a proposal for a vote, which has to take place at a council meeting, not at a briefing. Is everybody okay with that? If you just nod. Looks like we got a consensus. Okay. So that being said, Chris, thank you very much for everything. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for all the work that you put into this process too.
Thank you, Mayor.
I can tell you from a guy that stood by you for a lot of the early COVID stuff, you had a cool head under pressure. We're a great colleague in a difficult time, and I think you brought a lot to the team. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your leadership through all of this and through the historical time that we've gone through in the city.
You bet. Well, we got a great team, no question about it.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting, and we'll see you guys here shortly. And Mike, if you would, I'll talk to you in the morning, and we'll get with Phil and put together a list of questions that we've come up with that go outside the scope of what we've already been provided. For example, the Mr. Nichols' question about recovering monies that we put into COVID and see if that's something that we can take into consideration. And also the things like bonuses and whether or not that's something that we're able to do. So that's it for tonight, folks. Thanks very much. Thanks, Chris. God bless.
Thank you, Mayor.